Right now, inside a tube of dried mud stuck to a wall, there might be a living spider, paralyzed, unable to move a single leg, but alive. It's been sitting in there for days, maybe weeks, waiting to be eaten by something that hasn't even hatched yet. Before you grab a broom and knock down that row of rough little mud tubes near a window or under a roofline, you need to know what's actually happening inside one, because this story is stranger and more interesting than it looks. Those rough, tube-shaped structures lined up like a row of badly made little clay pots weren't built by a bird or some random insect. They're built by a mud dauber wasp, genus Sceliphron. One quick note, because this trips a lot of people up. In some languages, this insect's name literally translates to potter wasp. In English, though, potter wasp refers to a completely different group, one that hunts caterpillars, not spiders, and builds small, separate pot-shaped nests, not clusters of tubes. What's on your wall is a mud dauber. Different wasp, different story. And here's the first detail that changes everything you assume about a wasp nest. Forget the colony, the queen, dozens of workers defending the nest together. Mud daubers are solitary. No division of labor, no coordinated defense. One single female does absolutely everything, start to finish, alone. If you found one of these tubes on your wall, in most cases exactly one wasp built it, and she doesn't even live there, because that mud tube was never the adult wasp's home. It's a nursery, built one cell at a time, usually one cell per day. To build a single cell, the female makes dozens of trips, carrying small balls of wet mud in her mandibles and shaping the structure with her front legs. A solitary potter with no wheel, working entirely with the tools built into her own body. That's literally what she is, a one-woman ceramics operation. If you ever look closely at one, notice the waist, an impossibly thin thread connecting the thorax to the abdomen. That thin waist, called a petiole, works like a flexible joint, giving her surgical precision both for shaping wet mud and for the next step, which is the most unsettling part of this entire story. Because once the cell is ready, she doesn't go after caterpillars or generic insects. She hunts spiders, specifically. And what she does to them sounds like a horror movie shrunk down to insect scale. She finds a spider, delivers an extremely precise sting, and paralyzes it. Doesn't kill it, paralyzes it. The spider stays alive, its metabolism keeps running, but it completely loses the ability to move or defend itself. She carries that motionless body back to the nest and places it inside the mud cell. Alive. Still alive. This isn't an accident or gratuitous cruelty. It's biological engineering. She lays a single egg on top of the paralyzed spider and seals the cell with one more layer of mud. When the egg hatches, the larva finds exactly what it needs. Fresh food, deliberately kept alive, with zero risk of rotting before it's needed. The paralyzed spider functions as a biological pantry with an extended shelf life, perfectly preserved until the larva slowly eats its way through it. This behavior isn't learned, isn't a decision. It's a genetic script carried out exactly the same way, generation after generation, without any wasp ever needing to watch another one do it first. And scientists have been fascinated by this for a lot longer than most people assume. Back in the 18th century, French naturalist René de Réaumur was already documenting this kind of behavior in solitary wasps. By the late 19th century, entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre spent a large part of his career studying this exact mechanism, a sting precise enough to paralyze without killing, and used it as one of the first major examples of pure genetic instinct, with no learning involved at all. More than 2 centuries of observation, and the mechanism is still being studied today. And if that hunting technique already impressed you, one of this wasp's relatives takes it even further. The blue mud dauber, Chalybion californicum, specializes in hunting black widow spiders, one of the most feared spiders on the continent. But she doesn't just charge in, she taps gently on the black widow's web, mimicking the vibration of trapped prey. The spider comes out expecting an easy meal, and that's exactly when the wasp strikes. There's more. This same species sometimes doesn't even build her own nest from scratch. She'll break into an already finished mud tube built by an ordinary mud dauber, clear out whatever's inside, and reuse the structure to lay her own egg with fresh prey. A tiny, silent heist happening inside the very tube you were about to sweep off your wall. That alone should change how you look at these nests. Every cell built represents, in practice, one less spider roaming around your house, including, quite possibly, species you'd have even more reason to avoid. Now, about the fear of getting stung, which is probably the real reason most people reach for a broom in the first place. Experts describe mud daubers as essentially harmless to humans. They almost never sting, even when directly provoked. It makes sense biologically. With no colony to defend, there's no evolutionary pressure to develop group aggression. Her venom is potent, strong enough to immobilize an entire spider, but it's dosed and targeted for exactly that purpose. Going after a human simply isn't in her behavioral script. And here's a technical detail that backs this up even further. A wasp's stinger is actually a modified egg-laying organ. That means males, which don't lay eggs, physically don't have a stinger at all. Half the population of these wasps couldn't sting you even if they wanted to. Here's one more detail few people know, and it adds to the positive side of this story. The adult wasp doesn't eat spiders. The entire hunt is only to feed the larva. The adult feeds on nectar, flying from flower to flower, and in the process carries pollen along with her, contributing to pollination of the plants around your home. Spider population control on one side, pollination on the other. It's also worth pointing out, the mud dauber isn't some strange exception in the wasp world. She's actually closer to the rule than the colony-building wasp most people picture. The vast majority of wasp species on the planet are solitary. The social behavior, with a queen and workers, that the word wasp automatically triggers in most people's minds, is the exception within the group, not the standard. A lot of the generalized fear of wasps comes from exactly this mix-up. Completely different behaviors, lumped together under one common name. So what should you actually do if you find one of these tubes on your wall? If the nest is somewhere low traffic, with no one bumping into it constantly, the simplest move is to let the cycle finish. Once the adult wasp emerges, the cell is abandoned for good. She never reuses the same cell, and you can remove the empty structure afterward with no chemicals and no rush. If the nest is somewhere that genuinely gets in the way, like right next to a door you use every day, removal can be done safely, since the actual risk of getting stung stays low even during direct handling. Next time you spot those rough little mud tubes stuck to a wall, remember what's actually happening inside one. It's not a colony ready to attack. It's the solitary work of a single mother, one cell at a time, each one holding a mechanism science has been documenting for more than 2 centuries. A paralyzed living spider, waiting to feed a larva that hasn't even hatched yet. And that same logic applies to almost any strange nest you come across. In a cousin species, the organ pipe mud dauber, it's the male, not the female, who stands guard at the nest entrance, protecting the eggs from parasites, an unusually rare behavior among solitary wasps. Before assuming that anything weird stuck to a wall is automatically dangerous, it's worth pausing to consider which species actually built it and what role it's quietly playing in the ecosystem around you.